is Chris Nelson. My site is evolveconsciousness.org. Today is April 23rd, 2025. And I'm going to do a live presentation in a moment on the Law of Freedom, Part 5, Karma and Free Will. So I'm just going to switch up my scene in OBS, and I got I don't know, I forget, 15 slides, 14 minus without the thanks and the title slide. So 14 slides, probably be done in under an hour, and then afterwards, whoever wants to pop in for a discussion on the subject can do so. If not, well, that'll be the end of the stream. I'll do a wrap-up at the end, and that'll be that. All right. Hello, my name is Chris Nelson. My site is evolveconsciousness.org, and I'll be presenting the Law of Freedom Part 5 in an ongoing series of presentations about the Law of Freedom, titled Karma and Free Will. Oh, I'm going to have to redo this. I forgot to show my slides. All right, hold on a second. Unprepared. That's why I like recording this on a Sunday, but I gotta make the time and plan things out, and I didn't finish everything early, so that was not possible. Okay. Get this open. So I'm just gonna have to restart the recording. Why is this not showing up here? Boxes. See, that's not there either. All right, for some reason, stopped recognizing my video. All right, gonna restart the recording, and everything should be good this time. Hello, my name is Chris Nelson. My site is evolveconsciousness.org. Today I'll be presenting the Law of Freedom Part 5, Karma and Free Will, part of a series of presentations on the Law of Freedom, which is itself part of a series of presentation on natural law, the science of morality. So today is going to be, presentation is going to be like bringing up some issues and some arguments for the importance of free will that sort of dispels a lot of ideas that some people have, beliefs they have about karma. So let's take a look. Karma, so collective negative karma. So this is talking about what we've talked about in part 4 on karma in general. So karma can be positive or negative, and individual or collective. See part 4. For the Law of Freedom, which deals with aggregate or collective, the aggregate or the collective, and how persistent immoral behavior creates the state of enslavement, the negative karma present is mostly about the collective receiving negative consequences, which I termed aggregate K1, karma type 1 or level 1, receiving negative consequences from injustices. So that's people who are being violated. And this is from a failure to apply consequences K2, to the violators, which would stop the persistent immorality. So because it's not being stopped, it keeps happening. And then it keeps happening because everyone allows it, and that's the collective negative consequences that we continue to have because we're not putting a stop to it. So basic example is I hit you and you get hurt. It's instant as opposed to delayed, and that's K1, the negative result to another. But then you can hit me back and I get hurt, and that's also instant, where I feel that negative, and that's K2, where the negative result is returned. So it's sent out and it's returned in a way that is personal and direct negative karmic consequences. So again, we went over this in part 4. Check that out. We overall decide we are going to have rulers rule us and decide things for us. They control us and decree things that are moral as immoral or immoral as moral. For example, you're not allowed to do X without an injection. We get delayed collective negative consequence, K1, for the action of supporting a system of centralized authority over others. So that's not fun, but we're the ones supporting it. And so at the time, we're voting and everything's fine. But look at what they can do because we support the system of centralized authority over others. Then they're saying, you're not allowed to go here, you're not allowed to do this if you don't do what we say, which was already the case in different ways. But it's just an obvious example from the previous years that more people are aware of, because it wasn't as covert as the form of enslavement through government in general that we live under. So the purpose of karma: learn from mistakes. So what purpose does the idea of karma have? What purpose do negative karmic consequences have? Right? You can just think about it. Well, what's the purpose of all this? The negative consequences. Well, you're learning lessons of what not to do. Learn from mistakes via suffering, harm, or chaos. You do something, and if you get a negative result to yourself for doing it, be it automatically or from the response of another free will, then you don't do it again. You could stub your toe, you could start a fist fight, and then if you stub your toe, you get the negative instant causal, directly physical causal interaction of the pain. So you want to avoid that. You start a fist fight, someone hits you back, and and then you get hurt, and you get hurt more, and you don't get what you wanted, whatever that was. So you learn, hey, maybe I shouldn't do that. If you don't get a negative result, then you learn that you can repeat that behavior without consequences because you get no negative for doing it. This process of learning requires memory. Now that's either getting the negative returned to you or getting no negative. Well, you're still going to be learning something, and that requires memory of what happened. Not having memory of your action and the causal consequence thereof means there is no learning, and you end up repeating things over and over without knowing if they are beneficial or detrimental to yourself or others. History is the passing down of true or false memory to future free wills to learn from, and ideally not have to learn from doing the actions themselves. That is, not doing the mistakes themselves. You learn from the mistakes, or you learn from the good things people do, and you build on top of that. Memory to learn what not to do. There are other ideas posited for how karma works. I don't know if they are true, and I don't think anyone else can know either, as they can't be verified or demonstrated. These are beliefs which have logical issues given other arguments that disfavor their likelihood. Maybe memory persists beyond an individual life, where memories of past lives of humans is accessible to future lives. This ties into the belief of reincarnation. So maybe that's the way it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. I don't think anyone can show that this is actually verifiably the way things work, but let's take it as an idea. So let's say there's these memories of past lives, and then you have access to them in a future life. Like now in your life, you have access to past memories. All right, let's say you can do that. But that's not the default way for humans to learn. That's not how we learn. That's not the default memory recall process for humans. That's not something 99.9999999% of humans are even doing. It's not how humanity is going to learn what not to do. Not from those alleged past memories of past lives, however long ago. That's not how humanity is going to causally link the consequences in the present with a wrong behavior in the past. For all intents and purposes, the memories of your life that you can learn from, or the written stories of claims of what others have done in the past that you can learn from, are the ways humanities will learn what not to do. So it could be written, could be audio, could be video. We have that now. In the past they didn't, but now we have other forms of media. But in general, throughout history, it was just the written form or oral form passed on from person to person. So these are stories of claims of what has been done, and we don't know if all these stories actually happened, but someone at some point said it happened. Maybe it did. Anyways, that's another topic for another day. Automatic punishment? Are there laws that automatically punish in some way, maybe after death, or other wills or other consciousness that do so after death? If there are, how can anyone verify this? If there are, none of it is ending slavery. None of it. So this ties into the whole reincarnation, karma, punished for past lives, etc. Is it an automatic process, like a law? Is it other consciousnesses, like somewhat of a demigod or a god consciousness or a will that's making that happen? After you die, you're going to get punished. And you can't verify it. And none of it is ending slavery anyways. The purpose of reciprocal negative consequences or punishment is to learn from mistakes so that change can be created, which requires memory. Those are requirements for change. Without those requirements, which is memory, and having consequences applied, and then being able to learn from those consequences because you have memory of the causal link between what happened and the result in consequences, the desire to change won't happen. Free will is the base requirement to have memory of the negative, memory of slavery. You need free will to have that memory of slavery. You need a certain level of free will. And I've gone into that in part 3 or 2 of the Law of Freedom series. I forget. So free will is the base requirement to have memory of the negative, such as slavery. To learn from the negative and choose differently, to not get the negative and work to get the positive of true freedom instead. The claim that there is a law or process that necessarily brings direct, personal, negative karmic consequences back to you in life, or a part of you that continues beyond your life, is unverifiable. What is verifiable is the optional free will action that can make direct, personal, negative karmic consequences occur. So all these other ideas, hey, maybe that happens, doesn't really make sense to me. I'll go into that a bit more in this presentation. But what we can verify is that if you want things to change, and the way people are going to learn from their mistakes to create that change, and the memories they actually can have is in their life, and that's where direct, personal, negative karmic consequences are brought to them in their life that they're living, so that they can learn not to do those things. Universal blooper ideas. I was trying to find what to call this one, so I came up with this. It's a bit of a silly name. claiming that reincarnated present life specific conditions like being poor or being violated are wholly or partially determined by a reincarnation's past life actions. So your life now is directly tied to a specific single life in the past, which then could have been tied to a direct specific life in the past that follows through, and that's the buildup of your karma specifically, or your soul reincarnates, etc., is a bad design in the universe for a system of learning and correcting mistakes. So we already talked about that. Memory, consequence, learning. You don't have that, because that's not how 99.9999999% of people are having memory of things and are learning, capable of learning from. There is no learning when you have no memory of a past you are being rewarded or punished for having lived. Claiming the universe controls free wills to orchestrate and manipulate others to bring personal, direct, negative karmic consequences as a payback is violating free will choice. Because if the universe is making free wills do something, then they don't actually have free will. So it's not making people get violated because of something their soul did in another past life. Okay? Both of these claims for how the universe functions are nonsensical. That is to say, they're bullshit. And here's a quote from Manuel P. Hall from A Second Look at Karma. Just threw that in here. Karma is not a punishment bestowed by heaven, not a painful work given by deity. Karma is simply the fact that there are rules in the game of life in creation. Right? So you do certain things. I went over this in The Law of Freedom, Part 1 and Part 2. How there's consequences that can be positive or negative given certain choices of behavior. And then you learn from those choices, and then you choose optimal positive benefits as opposed to detrimental ones. Freedom is for free wills. That's the big point of this presentation. The default state of psychological beings that can move their bodies at will, that is animals, is that of freedom, whether they recognize it or not. And this I went into in Part 2 or Part 3. I think it was Part 3, but I don't remember. So you can learn more about why that statement is true. Other free will beings can destroy the freedom for them, whether they recognize it or not. So other beings can come and destroy the freedom for other beings. The second type of beings, second group or individual can destroy for the first group or individual, whether the second group or individual recognizes what they're doing or not. It can still happen. You don't need to know what you're doing. The one who can recognize the state of freedom versus not freedom, what creates it, which is a moral behavior, and be able to choose what behavior they engage in based on that understanding, a higher consciousness beings, such as humans, are the ones who can align and not align with that dynamic of morality with the law of freedom. The law of freedom is an abstraction of reality that can't be easily understood by all free will beings. Understanding it requires a high enough level of consciousness capabilities. Reversing evil and restoring the default of true freedom requires these capabilities, as does the ability to organize with others on that shared understanding that they can develop. They can then unite and counter the imbalance created by other free wills who might have physical or other superiority that thus far prevents the actualization of freedom restoration. So that's if you're an individual, you got violated by someone who's stronger, or they have weapons, well, you're at a disadvantage. But if you come back with 100 people, well, it doesn't matter how strong they are, the 100 people can take care of justice, bring back justice for that injustice that the one person created. Karma and free will. Again, continuing what freedom is for free wills. Karma and free will. Wind can make a rock fall off a cliff. Free will can kick a rock off a cliff. The law of gravity is a physical law and doesn't require consciousness or free will to function. Free will is not a requirement to the law of gravity functioning. The law of freedom is a metaphysical law about freedom, which requires the metaphysical free will to be present for it to function. Free will beings can create actions that create negative consequences for themselves alone, which is not evil, or for others, which is evil. So if you create negative consequences for yourself, you're not violating someone's rights. But if you do it to another, you are, and that's what makes it evil. Enslavement is a consequence created by free will. We are collectively doing it to ourselves because we collectively accept it. Free will behavior that affects human interaction dynamics alone, like creating evil or slavery, requires free will to counter it. It's created by free will. It requires free will to counter it. So I'll get more into that. And here we go. The next sentence brings up another good point. Laws alone don't do it for us. Sorry, ain't happening. And our free will to apply direct, personal, negative karmic consequences, abbreviated as DPNKC. So direct, personal, negative karmic consequences is optional. To have direct, personal, negative karmic consequences applied to rebalance things and bring back justice, to bring justice for an injustice, that's optional because it requires free will. It's not automatic processes in the universe. It requires choice. It's not mandatory, necessary like a law. The law of freedom isn't making the negative karmic consequence of aggregate enslavement. We do that. But it is describing it as the necessary outcome for our condemnation of evil or immorality, for our support, for our acceptance, for our tolerating it. It is necessary. If we tolerate what's being done as immorality, then that aggregate enslavement as a negative karmic consequence is part of that formulation of the law of freedom, that equation of how reality functions. Because if you're not dealing with it, well, it's going to stay. And if they keep repeating it, well, it's going to keep repeating because you're not making it stop. So hence, that's the aggregate negative karmic consequence that we have. Free will versus laws. Absent free will, reality operates by true principles. With free will, falsity can be accepted, leading to the creation of false behaviors to make reality contain unreal, false elements that shouldn't be there. Non-free will processes don't introduce falsity, unreality into reality because they're all operating by law. And it's automatic. It's not choice. Free will agents can do that. They can introduce falsity and unreality into reality. Now, do I have an example here? Maybe not. Maybe it's later, but I'll just mention one. So the false behaviors are, well, you're going to do something immoral. You're going to violate someone's rights. And that's creating something false in reality that shouldn't be there. It's unreal because it shouldn't be there. What should be there, and I've talked about this 10, 11 years ago or something in the presentation on consciousness and causality, consciousness and truth, and how there's things that are present in reality, the truth of the reality we live in, but then there's the truth of what should be. So what we have right now is slavery, but it's not what should be. So if the thing that should be here, which is living by moral truth, isn't here, well then what we have here is unreality within the reality. It's unreality in terms of it being false and not real. And you can check out Science of Morality, Natural Law of the Science of Morality, Part 4, Morality, where I go into this explaining how false, unreal, and true and real are related. I won't go into it here because it'll just hash things out beyond the scope of this presentation. So free will agents can do that. Reality itself doesn't take care of correcting the false behavior that we created. If it did, the false behavior would be created and we wouldn't be enslaved. The falsity we create is up to us to correct. Again, freedom is for free wills. The free will negatives, the evil that we create, can only be corrected by free will. It's not taken care of by an automatic process. It's not taken care of by karma. That, oh, the karma, that's your karma for something that happened in the past life. That's not how it works. We can keep on doing it to our detriment. So we're going to keep doing this. We're going to keep tolerating it. And it's going to keep happening. And that's to our detriment. And we can choose the beneficial path, but we're not, because most people are ignorant. We can't do it on our own. The few of us who know, it takes a majority, it takes a quantity. The universe allows evil immorality to be created because it allows all actions. All actions are allowed according to the laws. It's all allowed. Immoral behavior is allowed. Evil is allowed. So it's not going to disallow something and then fix it for us when we create it. It requires free will to fix it. The universe allows evil immorality to be created because it allows all actions. Courage to act makes things happen, be they to create evil or good. So courage. You got to act. You got to have the courage to do it, whether it's to create evil or to create good. Since free will creates immorality, the direct negative karmic consequence for immorality also comes from free will. Free will has to choose what to create and how to respond to what others create. So we have to choose how we're going to create, moral or immoral, and the results that come about. And then we have to choose how we can respond to what others create, whether we're going to return a negative, or whether we're going to balance things back out, or just leave it one-sided and then live in that lopsided condition of enslavement. We are doing this to ourselves in the aggregate as a whole by collectively allowing immorality. If it was a law doing it to us, it would mean no one is responsible for their actions. That everything's going to get taken care of. It doesn't matter what you do. It's all going to work itself out. You know, you ever heard that? Right? The evil, the immoral, it's all going to work itself out. God will take care of it. Oh, karma will take care of it. There's so much nonsense belief that people use so that they can remain irresponsible, like little baby children who don't want to take on responsibility. So if a law was doing it to us, this negative aggregate condition of enslavement, if I was the law doing it to us, it would mean no one is responsible for their actions, and this implies not only a denial of responsibility upon the individual, but a denial of free will as well. The universe isn't doing it to us. We are collectively doing it to ourselves. Evil is winning. Oh, yes, it is. So is there some other aspect of the universe that brings negative consequences to those who create evil or immorality? Does it automatically bring back order and freedom? Yeah, is there some aspect of the universe that's doing that? If good automatically and necessarily wins, if things automatically and necessarily end up personally ordered, fair, balanced, and just, then evil wouldn't be winning. Free will wouldn't be required to deal with free will that creates evil or immorality. We wouldn't need to do anything to combat immorality, evil, slavery, etc. It would all work itself out. Immorality would be removed and true freedom would be present. But reality check, that's not how things work, because free will is required to deal with free will. But if you look at the present and past, you can clearly see that all evil or immorality doesn't autocorrect from some automatic universal process. Wrong behaviors and results from free will require free will to correct. Freedom is for free wills. Freedom requires free will for it to be present, destroyed, or restored. If we want true freedom to be restored, we have to get involved in making it happen. Not going to happen by itself, little boys and girls. Sorry. It's up to free will to set things right, not some other power to do it for us. Okay? It's not up to the aliens. It's not up to some demigod, some demiurge. It's not up to God. It's not up to some creative intelligence. Ain't fuck all going to do it for us. So it's not up to it's up to free will to set things right, not some other power to do it for us, to correct the immorality of free will that free will creates. Free will has to correct free will. I hope I'm hammering that in enough. There's a lot of repetition in this presentation from other slides. Free will reciprocity. Direct, personal, negative karmic consequence is an optional reciprocity from a free will being towards the originator that destroyed freedom. It's optional, not necessary, not mandatory. The direct, personal, negative karmic consequence upon someone getting paid back for what they did wrong isn't going to happen automatically. It takes free will to do it. That's why the world is in the condition that it's in. The universe isn't making bad things happen to violators. The universe isn't making the same action be done to you after you do it. Like, oh, you do bad, you're going to get bad in return. No. A free will is choosing to create that reciprocity or not. So that reciprocity, I went into this in part 4. Something, people have this idea, the law of attraction, or you deserve what you get because, well, that's coming back to you. The bad things you do will come back to you. No, that reciprocity is going to be created by free will choosing to create it or not. And right now we're in the or not phase of it's not happening. So the violators keep violating. And history shows this. Many get away with their misdeeds having no direct, personal, negative karmic consequence applied. Go look at history, you'll see. Direct, personal, negative karmic consequence, reciprocity for immorality is willed. It's not a mandatory, necessary aspect of the universe like a law is. This applies at the individual as well as the aggregate level. One group, or aggregation, doing something immoral to another group, or aggregation, doesn't necessitate the same or different action or harm being returned to the first group. For example, if we are enslaving another group or species, and we must be enslaved by others in consequence. So this is the idea, right? If we're enslaving another group or species, then we must be enslaved by others in consequence. So allegedly a correspondence. That would mean a law necessitates such a result. That you enslave others, they're going to then you're going to be enslaved. Okay, that would mean a law necessitates it. If it has to happen, that means a law is doing it. Meaning the universe is denying free will to make, I mentioned that a few slides ago, that it's going to make another group come and enslave the other group because that first group is enslaving yet another group. Well, that's denying free will to others and making them enslave us. See the logic here? It doesn't make sense, that idea. It's a belief. When the direct, personal, negative karmic consequence is not willed into creation, however, then indirect negative karmic consequence is the automatic result, which is letting the initiation of harm persist. No laws end evil or slavery. Free will is a random component of existence in comparison to the deterministic or probabilistic quantum mechanics, which is probabilistic in quantum mechanics or probabilistic in other, like statistics. I just added that in there to give people an idea of... Anyways, I went into that part 1 or part 2 of the law of freedom. So free will, random component, comparison to deterministic or probabilistic, causal chain of everything else, where there is no choice for outcomes, operating within laws where specific conditions produce specific results. Free will has choice. Immoral behavior is a choice. No law necessitates a reciprocal, direct, personal, negative consequence for being immoral. The consequences are demonstrably applied by other free wills. Laws allow immoral actions. They don't automatically apply payback reciprocity for injustices as a teacher. For someone to directly, personally feel the negative karmic consequence and not repeat those actions. It's not going to say, oh, you're allowed to do it, and then I'm going to fix it for you. What it does allow is, like the example before, you punch someone, well, they're going to feel that K1 level, they're going to feel that pain. And then they punch you back, and then they punch you back 10 times. Well, you're going to feel it worse than they did. And then you're going to learn not to do it. So all that is basic physical causality. But that response for you receiving that balance return, that direct personal negative karmic consequence for your violation, that's a free will who's choosing to do that. And they could choose not to do it. So it doesn't get applied like the third law of motion of an equal and opposite reaction the moment you punch a wall and hurt your hand, which is what I just explained. There are no laws that will automatically end slavery for our existence. If there were, slavery would be ended already. It wouldn't even exist if it was being done automatically to correct things for us. Will or consciousness is the only thing that can create slavery and the only thing that can restore true freedom by ending slavery. Period. The end. Look at the law of freedom. Back to presentation 1. Look at them all. How does slavery get created? Immoral behavior. Only free will, consciousness can create immoral behavior at a certain level of consciousness. Only they can create immoral behavior. Only they can create enslavement. And only they can deal with that enslavement to restore the default of true freedom. So you can bring up the example, well, an asteroid can destroy humanity, and that would end slavery. But that also ends freedom for humanity. So it doesn't apply to the goal of the emergence of true freedom, as humanity needs to exist for true freedom to be possible and for the law of freedom to apply. So that's a non sequitur. It's just bullshit. Holding on to the negative karma. There is a negative consequence, K1, already at the victim. And it stays there without free will sending it back. K2, the response. The free will, metaphysically created immorality requires the free will, metaphysically created response to bring the balance of justice, mat, for the imbalance of injustice. Free will to match free will. Morally writing, M2, if you know my Science of Natural Law, Part 4 Morality presentation, that'll make sense. I'm not going to go into it, but it's just here for reference. Morally righting an immoral wrong is not done by automatic laws, but by free will choice. Free will choice is the driving force to create immorality and to deal with immorality. Laws determine what is allowed to happen, and it allows it to happen. We are collectively holding on to the negative karma because we aren't sending it back to the origin, completing the cycle, the 1-to-1 ratio, the balance. The imbalance is created by violators, but we let them repeat it to persist the enslaved condition. They keep doing it because we let them. So I talked about this briefly in the Part 4 previous presentation on the law of freedom. So we're holding on to that negative karma. It's just going one way from the violator, boom, to the violated. We're getting violated. And then we're just holding on to that. Oh, well, thank you for that negative karma. We're not going to create negative karma for you to make you stop. No, we're just holding on to it as a majority, as the overall quantity of people on this planet. The sowers of evil are getting paid. Oh yeah, getting that payback, boy. Watch out. The sowers of evil get a return. They get a payback. They reap what they sow. But not necessarily in the negative for negative personal payback sense that we're normally talking about when we're talking about people getting karma, that they're getting paid back a negative for having created a negative. That's not really what's happening so much. They sow violence, and the return many or most of them get is getting what they wanted. Or literally being paid money for doing it, such as the police, the military, politicians, banksters, etc. They're creating falsity into reality. They're creating fraud, deception, and they're getting paid for it. And some of them are getting paid for physical violence and higher violations of property rights that individuals have. And some are paid non-monetarily, so they're getting what they wanted, even if they're not getting paid. So in getting what they want by having control over others. So these could be like the hidden hand, who's behind the scenes. Maybe they're not at the top echelons of monetary power, and some are, but maybe they're like, they could be a normal job, but they're behind the scenes calling the shots, and they're getting what they want. A system of control and enslavement that they're at the top echelons above all the other ones that we see at the Bilderberg and whatever groups of influence and power and control. Some people could be even behind that, above that, and they're not making tons of money, but they're getting what they want, which is the control, total control, and increasing it, and getting what they want, which is just that control and creating a hell on earth in various degrees. Those who immorally control others are parasites of society, politicians, etc. They don't really do anything. They just leech off of other people's labor and get paid, and they don't produce anything of significant value, any value whatsoever, actually. So those who immorally control others are parasites of society, coercing their way to self-benefit, which is contrary to being a beneficial or non-detrimental contributor to the aggregate way of life we all co-create. The predator mindset they have is given to others in a diluted form, so that others accept and want what their masters want as a way of life for all. Everyone is allowing evil to reign, allowing immorality to be done to them. That's what we, the majority, sow, and we're reaping that bitter harvest. So the part that we're sowing is we're just allowing it all to happen. And that's what we're reaping, a bitter harvest. While the other ones, well, the sowers of evil, it's not so bitter because they're getting something out of it that they want. Who is responsible? Is enslavement being done to us? Yes. Others are exerting control to enslave covertly. They create that control. And if they didn't, it wouldn't be there as a problem. But what is the expectation when some try to exert control or theft over the rightful property of others? To just let them? Is that what really is expected? Is that really what is expected when there's control and theft and immorality over the rightful property of others? Is that, it's just to let them? Yeah, that's the expectation when people do that. Yeah, we'll just let them, go right ahead. Well, that's nonsense. We have to respond to deny that attempt to control or enslave. Send back karma to bring back balance. If we don't do anything, inaction, then the violators can repeat immorality, and we continue to let them repeat it. We are part of the process of our collective enslavement by letting it happen. We get collective, impersonal, universal justice of all individuals getting what they collectively deserve for the inactions of the majority via the principle of the majority or the principle of quantity. It's fair at the aggregate scale because overall everyone is doing it. That's our collective karma. But it's not fair at the personal scale, since many individuals work against the evil that the majority support. They are bound by the actions of others that make them suffer the personal injustice of being enslaved by the collective. Moral justice to stop the repeat injustices is not an automatic necessity of law in the universe. It has to be willed into creation. That's the end of the presentation. I thank you for your time and attention. My name is Chris Nelson. My site is evolvedconsciousness.org. And I guess I'll see you next time when I do part 6 of the Law of Freedom. Thank you again. Take care. Peace. All right. That is that. Let's hop on back. Switcheroo over here. And I'm going to pop in the link. So, hey Theo, thanks for tuning in. And yes, he said, this is hardcore spirituality right here. That's right, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen of all ages. Some hardcore shit. You need to learn it. So if anyone wants to come in and, oh, right, I forgot to do my side on this. So if anyone wants to join and have a discussion, so that's the link. And yeah, talk about the subject, stuff related to the subject, obviously natural law, the law of freedom. That's the main goal. But if not, I'll give it a few minutes. And if not, well then, oh, forgot to take that off. That'll be the end of the stream. Be short and sweet. Pretty much just a recording, and that's fine. Yeah, so part 5. We got somebody here. We got somebody. What we got here? Let's paste that link. All right. We got Brandon. Hey, Brandon. How's it going?
Howdy, howdy.
Oh, shit. Wait. I forgot to put my ears in.
Hey, the beauty of doing a live
Dude.
stream.
No, I'm on my monitor audio. Goddamn audio. All right. Now we're on my regular speakers. Okay. I can hear you now.
Yep, the beauty of doing
Shit,
a live
up?
stream.
All right, hold on.
Still can't hear me?
Those are my speakers. All right, we're gonna. Let's try these guys. Can you talk? I'm not seeing the volume go up. Oh, now I am, but I can't hear it.
How about now?
Let me check on the stream. Yeah, the audio's coming in there, but it's not coming in for me. What the hell? I check Video Ninja. That's my mic. Well, it's the first time this has happened.
Welcome to Audio Problems.
Yeah, still not here. I'm in Video Ninja and I did a test and it came in. What the hell? Audio settings. Yeah, that's all good because you're coming in the stream. It's just me who can't hear. Oh, shit. It's not muted. Yeah, normally every time I just pop you in and everything's fine.
Yeah, you all good?
Maybe I'll have to start using that Restream software so we don't have problems like this. Mute you, volume up, down. Advanced audio properties. Monitor and output. Want to say something again?
Howdy, howdy. Can you
Oh,
hear me?
fuck.
Still nothing.
Because the audio works on. Yeah, I did the test. That works. Yeah, video. I get audio from there. Wow. I'm gonna cancel the video Ninja. No, that's not gonna work because it's already working on the stream. I have no idea what the problem could be. If I bring you in twice, you want to try that? No.
Howdy, howdy. Still nothing.
Fuck. What a fucking pain in the ass. Well, I can't, like, I was thinking, I'll listen to what you have to say on the stream. I guess I can do that. I'll listen to what you say on the stream and then I'll have to reply like 10 seconds later or something. Yeah, I can, I don't know if it'll be 10 or 15 seconds later, but it'll be later.
Yeah, that'll be.
What a bunch of bullshit. But go ahead and talk.
um, fantastic presentation as always. Of course, the repetition and the message you was trying to hammer home was, in order to combat will requires free will. And that was the main point that I had wrote down. And then also too, thinking about the whole Mayat, symbolism when you was associating or talking about the whole importance of memory and learning and being able to discern when it comes to how action and right and wrong behavior. And I always symbolically, saw that as the weighing of the heart, or with the scales of my yacht. And when you have that knowledge, when you have that memory to recall and make associations, to be able to he'll use her earlier her knowledge to be able to determine if my behavior, my free will choice that I'm about to do is in line with what's moral, what's right, what's good and is true, Hamayat, or if it's going to be, immoral, so just that point right there kind of went along with what you have always been saying and talking about, Hamayat, and you've done presentation on that. But that's one of the things that I had wrote down, just making that association when it comes to, weighing, because that's what it's supposed to be about, is using discernment in the now to be able to make the correct choices and learn from those choices. And without that memory, without that her knowledge, then we aren't in a position to correctly learn from our mistakes. And that's why we live in a society where people are making those same mistakes over and over, and people aren't learning from them. And then those mistakes that are detrimental, there's no free will choice that's being there to rectify, those incorrect choices. So yeah, free will is going to be required to combat will.
Oh shit, there. Thanks. Yeah, maybe I muted my mic or it muted itself. I don't know. I don't know how long that's been muted for, but Brandon could hear me complaining at the beginning. And yeah, so that those concepts of ma'at is like, karma's not in there, but as when you look up, the associations with different concepts of ma'at, usually it's order and yeah, I guess I was muted on the stream. Well, that sucks. But ma'at is directly tied with karma, even though it's not usually one of those attributions of qualities that they give it. But when people think of karma, that's exactly what they're thinking of is order. Bringing somehow order is going to be magically restored in the universe because there's karma taking care of it, and that things are going to work out. Things are fair in the universe, and it's all going to work out. And there's balance. Things will come back to people who do good and the people who do bad. Oh yeah. Oh, if it's not in this life, it's not in this life. Well, they'll face it in another life. Don't worry, the universe is going to take care of it all in that future life. When they reincarnate, they'll get consequences, and they'll pay for it at some point. If it's not in this life, then in another. Well, but that's just belief. Maybe they do get reincarnated, and maybe they're going to get some consequence. But to me, that just smells like bullshit because it goes against the whole purpose of what karma is for. What is it for? What's the purpose of having a negative consequence? To learn from it. If you're not going to learn from it, then that's a broken system in the universe. If you don't have the memory for it to be able to learn from it, you don't even have the causal link, because you have to have the causality between the consequence of result and the initial conditions that created that result. And if you don't have that memory of the past that led to the future, then how are you going to learn from your mistakes? So why would the universe punish you directly as an individual based on your previous alleged soul's life experiences, that it didn't punish you there and no one punished you? So the universe is like, oh, we got to punish you later. Anyways, it all just doesn't make any sense to me. And the only way you're going to get to learn from your mistakes is if you know what you did wrong.
So, kind of going against, well, I shouldn't say going, held against, but a lot of what most people would say, spirituality and what they know about karma has possibly been hijacked. One thing that the social engineers are good at doing is giving people these proxies and giving people these imitations of real things. So then, therefore, how they buy into it and they build their worldviews. People construct, their thought form and beliefs. So these notions of karma that we have been given, either from New Age, teachings, or from Eastern traditions, and even in a lot of occult traditions from a lot of have mystery schools. Um, not to say that that they were wrong. It's just what you're trying to say, or from what you're coming from, is you're focused on what you can actually prove and verify. From a more logical perspective, because in a lot of these teachings, they kind of come from like a more right brain, and sort of like you said, there's only like a small amount of people who can figure it out from that way. But from the way you're putting out, anyone should be able to understand it, because that's what the whole purpose of us, of having that ability to use logic and be able to come to this higher states of memory, of awareness, and be able to compare and contrast, put things together, and using the whole method of the trivium. So is that what hell you're kind of saying, have not to take away from any of those other teachers and what how they brought to the table? It's just you're kind of pinpointing it down, because I'm kind of familiar with your work, and coming from a more logical, more understandable, where it's more easier to understand compared to like some of those teachers got so-called have messages or readings, channelings from, like higher form of intelligence that, how maybe that's true, how maybe that's not. We can't really verify that, but most people aren't going to be able to, have that, health experience. Now you're muted. Yeah, for some reason now. Yeah. Yeah, I can't
Sorry,
hear
I
you.
muted myself to drink and then I forgot. Yeah, I can hear you now. And there's the video ninja. There was a big red button to mute the speaker. And I don't know. I don't know why that came on. I'm pretty sure I didn't click it, but it was on. So I finally figured it out. But yeah, my perspective is about verifiability and demonstrability. So like I say, a lot of these ideas, hey, maybe they're happening. But when I look at things that we can verify, they don't fucking make sense. They just don't make sense. So, you know, like you take Manly P. Hall or anybody, people say things that they believe are true, but they have not verified it. How do you verify it? Well, can you demonstrate that it actually is this way? No. So then you believe it. And you believe it with certainty and a big strength of belief. Well, that doesn't change that it's a belief. It might be true. Not saying that it's false. But if you're going to make a claim that something is true, then you should at least have been able to verify and demonstrate that that truth is actually a truth. And if you haven't, then what you're talking about is a belief, even though you don't even recognize it yourself as a belief. I have to do that presentation on truth and epistemology at some point there, but when will that happen? I don't know with all the plans I have to finish off the natural law presentation, but eventually I'll explain that epistemological process is how do you know what you know? Because it's very important, and people don't realize, even in our community, whatever so-called truth or freedom community, people don't realize how the things that they say and that they claim is true, because by default, when you just say something, you're making an is statement. You're saying da 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 da. You don't have to say is. As soon as you make a claim of representation of reality, it's a statement of what is, which is a claim of truth. And when you make a claim of truth, well, then you should actually know that it's truth and have gone through that epistemological process to be able to verify that it's true. And if you don't, then what comes out of your mouth as a claim of truth is actually only something that you believe is true, but you're expressing it as though it is true. Then the proper way to express it would be, I think that, la 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 la, or I believe that, etc., or I feel that, la, whatever. And these are qualifying what you're about to say and removing that aspect of making a claim of how reality is. And yeah, so qualifying it would help, but people aren't going to qualify it because they don't even understand this process, this epistemological process or lack thereof that is not even happening in themselves. So they get information and then they believe it, and then they're going to talk about it as if it's true. At the last week with the Great Work Launchpad, mentioned it about believing in aliens or all these different things, and like, hey man, maybe there's the alpha draconians and the grays and all this other stuff. Like, I don't know. It could be. But so many people talk about so much stuff, even beyond that, even in like what's happening in our world and political stuff or what happened here or there in the world. And there's like so much that we don't even have that level of detail or that level of verifiability and demonstrability to even make those assertions about reality. And so it's like, well, I read this and then this person said that, and this allegedly is happening here, but people just talk about it like this is happening and this happened here and that didn't happen and it happened like this instead. And the conspiratorial mindset obviously gets into that in a poor way. But even that's better than, well, the news told me, therefore it's true, which is not even not even expanding your sources of information to even try to get like the opposite of what they're saying as true. But then, yeah, the conspiratorial is just automatically the opposite. So whatever is like, this is what the mainstream says, then automatically like the opposite is what's true. And that's just fallacious thinking, bad conspiratorial thinking that a lot of people engage in.
That's why it's important, to be careful with your words. That's something that I think a lot of like the wise sages, be aware and be conscious for what you say. That's something that I've learned from your work, and something that that how I try to take heed in, for what I speak into the world. Try to separate, things that hell I verify versus things that I believe, hell to be true. And that's something that, I think we all kind of fall into, especially when we start our journey. We all just take in a lot of information, and when we kind of just run with it, and we don't really, do that due diligence to actually filter and, go through that, that process of filtration to actually, weed out the falsities and inconsistencies. So then therefore, we can prove it to ourselves, then put it back out there for others to learn.
Yeah, it's it's an important thing that I fell into and tried to get better at. Not saying that I don't do it, but I do it a lot less because I try to be aware of like what I'm saying or the conclusions I draw and the certainty that I apply to them. So yeah, always got to try to bring it back to reality, because that's what truth is that's a synonym. Truth is a synonym for reality, existence, things that exist, either that we can sensorily be aware of, or other stuff that could exist that we can't confirm, and it might be there, might be other things, but we can't verify it, we can't demonstrate it, so we can't say this is true or assert that it is true. We can only assert that it is a possibility or maybe a probability. And until we can actually verify it and demonstrate it, then we can't say, we shouldn't talk about it as if it's true, and we certainly can't, I guess, accurately make the claim that it is true. And yeah, I'm sure there's a shitload of stuff that's part of the universe and things that are going on, and that we just can't verify and demonstrate. But it's happening. But until we can verify or demonstrate it, then we can't just say, oh, this is true. And some things can happen to some people, and it's true that it happened to them, but because they can't bring any verifiability or demonstrability to what happened to them to anyone else, then they can say something is true that happened to them, and they are speaking the truth. But when someone else hears it, when they're going to hear it, if they don't have the verifiability or demonstrability in what they're hearing, or what they're reading, or what they're seeing, then the information that they receive is just information, and they can choose to believe it's true, or hold off on judgment and say, okay, well, it's possible. They can also choose to reject it. But if you don't have that verifiability of something that can negate it or that can demonstrate it, then you can't say that it's for certain false or for certain true. But there's the problem that people receive information, and the person that's giving it, they might have actually gone through an honest epistemological process to assert it as truth. But then the people receiving it are merely going to be engaging in that belief, in that trust, in that loyalty, in that faith. I've gone into this in my presentation on belief. What is belief? Well, it's when you get down to it, when you believe in something, it's because You have faith in it being true. You have you trust that it's true. You're loyal to it being true. And that applies to other people when they provide information. And some people just, because they have trust and loyalty and faith in the individual, then the information that they receive from that individual, well, then they're going to apply trust, loyalty, and faith to that information by proxy of it coming from that individual. But the individual that it comes from, well, they could have not done the epistemological process and they're engaging in the fallacious thinking and they're just providing that information out. And then the person receiving it does the same. And, it's just people talking beliefs without actually knowing if any of it is true, which it might be true. Again, I'll state that it might be true, but they don't actually know that it's true. But if you have nothing to say about that, we can get back to the presentation topics or anything. We've been kind of going off tangent there. Anything you want to talk about, it's all good.
Is Theo in the background?
Oh shit! Do you see him? Oh shit! Yeah. Mention
Yep.
something in the chat, Theo, because I got my browsers and then I had the other one over and I couldn't see that someone joined in. All right. How's it going?
Hey, yeah, I'm good. What about you guys? Yeah,
Having
doing the great work.
technical difficulties. Yeah.
Yeah, they always happen with the software these days. Although you can sometimes forget to unmute yourselves and all those things. I know how
Yeah,
it
that's
is.
an 18-inch problem. That's the me problem. This time it wasn't the technology. It was the me. I guess I was the problem.
Yeah, it's either way. Anyway, yeah, man, really, really good presentation. Wow, it's the most hardcore way to explain karma that I ever heard. I don't know if even Mark Pesio talked about it like that. Definitely not in so much detail. Yeah, really, really great work. Really hard hitting, and yeah, it kind of activates those left brain that is not activated in all those other spiritual communities or ways of thinking in general. This new age and all that. They never talk about the kind of hard hitting, like hardcore information you present, and you present it in such a logical way and kind of, yeah, again, well detailed, and you look at it from really kind of interesting angles. um, and yeah, it really kind of makes you understand that it's all up to you. There is nothing so divine that will save you from all your bad actions. Like if you're committing bad actions on a daily basis, but imagining that you're good and that there's a divine force that will lead you to a good path, it's not gonna work. And yeah, you're just gonna be stuck in the same old loop and just complaining about the world or whatever, like blaming the external when the internal is where the mess is. And you're just like putting those uh how to say, like bandages of beliefs, like you just talked about, or like, how we like to say is that in green language, like be lie. It's like you're being in a lie in order to conceal the fact that your internal space is in a mess, and you have a lot of work to do internally, and also by extension externally as well. So if you believe that, for example, eating meat and persisting with the whole meat industry and all that, supporting them is somehow a moral action, and somehow you believe that it's good for you to and you can only you must eat meat. You cannot eat a vegan diet. I know some people, maybe they really have some health issues, so I'm not saying that, but I think this is a good example of, like, very common example. People think, oh, like eating meat, it's good for you. It's been done for many, many generations. So I can eat meat; it's not a big deal. And then they just buy the meat, which supports this slavery and suffering of animals, and this is clearly immoral. Like you said, it's causing negative consequences to free will beings, and and then you're surprised that your life is still a shit and you're still not fulfilling your goals, and you're still not leveling up in terms of like your emotional places, like your emotional space and all that. Like you're not reaching higher levels of happiness in your life and all those things. um, so I think when you really look at it like the way you present it, Chris, and when you really think about it that way, it makes it a lot clearer. It really brings clarity to the situation, to what people need to understand and what they need to change.
Yeah, for sure. Like you mentioned, the mentalism. It's all people don't want to. That slide about responsibility. That a lot of these beliefs just people believe them for a reason because it gives them comfort. Because then they don't have to take on that hardship and that burden of the responsibility of doing anything about it. And you don't have to worry about it, all the evil and the negative, just ignore the negative. It's all in that new age type of bullshit nonsense belief. So change the way you think and activate your mental capacities and your emotional capacities for care that drives everything so that you can learn like the right things, learn to think better, and that leads you to get maybe find the quality information that will help you like really purify the internal domain and do that inner work to make yourself a better functioning human in terms of like being able to understand what's happening in the world and in yourself, and the power you have, the power of your consciousness to affect that outer world. And it's not instant like Infinity Gauntlet or anything where we're just going to change reality at an instant, but it's the power you have to, as the magician or sorcerer, the wizard, etc., to influence others. And by all of us aligning on that moral path, then we can co-create as a majority. We can shift the way the world looks and make it look a different way, because not talking about planet Earth or the universe. I'm talking about the human world that we created, because the human world wouldn't exist without humans. The world as the planet Earth would still exist, because that has nothing to do with us. It's not our thoughts that create reality literally. It's not thoughts to reality, it's thoughts to emotion to reality. And it's not all of reality, it's a part of reality, which is the human reality that we create. The rest of reality is still going to be there if the planet blows up and there's no human beings left in the universe. But yeah, there's so much bullshit beliefs that people they love to gobble up because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they're powerful, or that someone else has got it. Like Passio says, we don't got it. No one's got it. Passio don't got it, and no one's got it because it's a collective effort of everyone having to come together and be on the same page and walk that same path to create that whatever that path is going to allow us to create, which there's not enough of us right now.
Yeah, nowhere near, nowhere close to being enough, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I've fallen to those new age beliefs quite a few times, like in my life. Like you say, when you're going through hardships and stuff, like it kind of brings comfort, kind of like how I use the word band-aid or something like that. Um, and sometimes it can be useful, I suppose, as long as you don't get stuck in it, right? Like this is like this kind of spiritual moments people go through sometimes, when they're having hard time. Like my dad always used to say, like, when you're having a very, very hard time and there's no one to help you, it's like there's no one else you can call to but God. That's something like my father used to say, especially when I back in the day used to have like those discussions with him, because I used to be an atheist. So I was like, say, oh, I think there is no God, and he would say this. Um, and this kind of ended up being kind of resonating with me, and I kind of felt it in many times in my life that I would become more spiritual, I guess. I suppose you could say right-brained when I would have more hardships. So I suppose it's when you are having those difficulties already, you cannot really think the way you present it, like a very hardcore way. I think that they cannot really take it, right? When you think about someone who's really struggling emotionally and all that, it's maybe too hardcore for them. So to get to this level of understanding, we have to heal ourselves first. So I guess like people like us who are aspiring to do the great work, we need to take like the leading position as people who are already healthy enough mentally, emotionally. We can handle those hardcore truths and hardcore spirituality, and we need to kind of lead people. Kind of how I said with how the Buddha teaches is like like don't hit them hard so they have more suffering, but try to reduce the suffering and lead them to the understanding that they're trying to get to, like almost like in a roundabout way, I think. And I think you're kind of also doing that, Chris, like in a way as well. Like some of your presentations are not so hardcore like this one. And this is a part 5, so it's been leading up to it, so it's good. Yeah, I think we definitely need more people doing it in more ways, and that's how we're leading to the betterment of all of us in the whole.
Yeah, we gotta be broken records. Just repeat everything. That's something I mentioned. Maybe it was in part 4. I forget, but part 3. There's this aversion. People are looking for. They want to put something new out, and that's like focus on something new later when you're getting into when you're trying to activate yourself to do the outer work after you've done some inner work, maybe we could say a significant amount, which is ongoing in your life. But people, they're looking for something new to say, and like, oh well, this person already said this and this person already said that, so oh well, I can't find anything new, or I've seen it before in chats, and they're focusing on the wrong thing. Because if your goal and the motivation is to end the enslavement so that true freedom can be restored, then the information is the same, and it's already been talked about. I'm repeating it. I'm adding new stuff because I've invested time to contemplate it and think about it and look at it from different angles to see how is this true, how is this false, and really mull it over. And yeah, so I'm able to add some new stuff to it. But don't, like, everyone out there shouldn't be focused on trying to find something new. You should just understand what the quality truths are and then talk about those quality truths, because that's what other people need to learn. So we need to be broken records. We need to be just repeaters. And, I have other ideas later on that I'll do. Try to do some more like visual stuff with, I don't know what it's called. Was it InDesign or something? I forget what the app is, but like, with animations and stuff, like I did with my intro, which I used tutorials with. But I was like, I did an intro finally after 10 years. I got an intro video.
Yeah.
So I learned how to do that, and I was like, yeah, like I could use my my wheel, my care for truth, feedback generation, wheel of life, and I could make that like an interactive video. I've also thought of doing it in like web design, because there's some cool frameworks out there for animation, so I could make that like, and I've thought of putting like most of my work as an interactive learning thing, where you like click and then it like zooms you in and like things move around, and I could do that on the web. Anyways, that's like a shitload of
Yeah.
work, but
Yeah.
it's something I could do. But like already I got my life and my work and the family, and then I got the great work, and then if I do that, then well, I'm not doing the great work, and that's just going to take a long time. And then the videos, I guess it's not as interactive and it's more visual, and I guess that's more popular than interactive websites. But it's, anyways, I don't know. I don't remember how I got into this sidetrack, but I'm just saying that people don't focus on new things when you're starting out. You know, you can find the new things as you get into it, but when you, like I mentioned in the last episode of the Great Work Launchpad initiation, that I started with writing, and I was just like taking Passio's podcasts and like, okay, podcast 1, what's he talking about? All right, talk about what he's talking about, write it, and okay, go to the next one, go to the next one, and then eventually I came out with like original presentations. My first one was foundational living and true unity, and then the next one was on truth is love. And so those presentations, I think they were like 2 or 3 hours or something for my first 2 audios, I guess, with slides. And but before you get to that, you know, focus on repeating the quality truths that one person or 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people have already talked about. And we're talking about the quality truths that are going to actually make it possible to end slavery. And this isn't as I mentioned in my morality presentation, this isn't the level 1 great work information of the who, what, where, when, of the particulars, of understanding that there is enslavement and evil. This is getting deep into the why, the causal aspect of the universals and not the particulars, the universals that apply at any time to explain the evils that have been created and how to get out of it that hasn't happened yet on our planet. And another thing related to what you mentioned, the way I see it, my hope is in teachers having children and raising children, and slowly that increasing. That's the only way I think we have a good significant chance of making it out, because if you raise them and they're going to be conditioned by your conditioning of truth, then you got a new human that's being put out into the world that isn't as indoctrinated as everyone else, and they don't have to undo that conditioning and completely remake themselves, because that truth as a destructive process, it's hardcore, like you've been saying tonight, Theo. You know, it's very destructive, and people can't handle it. They do not want to change their ways. They just, like you mentioned, the animal issue and eating meat, like, it's this way, I was taught this way, this is the way it's been done, and I'm going to keep doing it. And it's with so many other things, like government or anything in society, or doing certain things in their lives. Like, they just want to do it the way they've been doing it, and they want to keep doing it that way. And so, you know, as important as it is to do the great work, and it is important, because I wouldn't be here without people like Passio and others providing the information that I come across, and then that starts my journey. It's very important to do it. And the more people that do it, the greater the likelihood of other people coming across it. But with that said, the magician wizard aspect is very difficult to influence others. We've all done it in our lives, and especially the people who are around us who know us, they pretty much dismiss us. It's like they've known you all their life, so they have a certain idea of how you are, and then when you change and like they're like, yeah, whatever, and then even if they listen to you, they're missing something. Like it could be the suffering, that chaos that sparks that initial spark of care for truth that we develop, but they don't have it yet. So they could listen to you, but then they're not going to do anything with it. They're not going to go on their own journey. They're not going to try to learn things themselves. They're not going to go on that quest, that knowledge quest, as I referred to it in my like initial awakening in 2006, or I could call it the spiritual path to truth, etc. They're not getting on that path. They're not climbing the mountain like Passio uses an analogy for, and so that's why I view the influence is important, because you're going to get some people, but then they're going to die. And usually when you get them, well, they've already had children, and their children aren't going to change because they didn't raise them when they were raised. They raised their children when they were unraised, so they didn't raise their children. Their children remain unraised. But then the influence they're going to have as a magician or wizard in their own children's lives is going to be very minimal because they're already raised. The opportunity was missed. So that's why I'm thinking the best chance we have are for people who have reconstituted themselves and raised themselves with the help of others that they've never met potentially. That they have children and they set things right from the start. And it can slowly grow that way. And of course, teach them the importance of doing the great work and to try to increase the voice of truth. But I'm really like looking at conscious parenting as the way that we have a chance at this, because people are just so stubborn and calcified and stuck in their ways that they don't want to hear it. And if they hear it, like I said, they're not ignited. They're missing that suffering or that catalyst. There's a catalyst that's missing, and usually it's suffering that's just not happened, and then it just goes nowhere with them, and like they'll know things, but then they'll never do anything with it. They won't activate into the wisdom aspect. They'll have some knowledge or understanding, but they won't go for more of that deeper knowledge and understanding, and then more care to activate themselves. And so I'm just thinking that it's up to us creating future generations and programming them correctly, instead of trying to get adults to reprogram themselves when they're so calcified into the conditioning they've been through.
Yeah, great point. Great point.
Agreed. Yeah. I know when I'll be having children, I'll definitely be homeschooling them with a whole lot of Chris Nelson. That's gonna be their main, their main curriculum.
Sounds good. Yeah, some Passio, up to
Yes,
up to
maybe
like
that's after.
up to 200.
Too hardcore.
Yeah, because after 200,
Okay.
it's it's bad. Like
It's a
got
little
Passio
bit,
in the car after 200, and he starts his rages and swearing, and I'm like, oh shit, gotta turn the volume down. Don't want my young one getting all the bad influence. That's for adults. That's for the adults
yeah.
who don't want to be baby spoon fed to learn from. But it's you can. It's good to have him listen to the other stuff. But when it gets too much into the expletive category, then I'm like, oops. Yeah, but I usually have less of that, and I don't have as much work as Passio, but I try to working my way up to more detail and really hammering it out there for people to understand in greater depth and to really like, yeah, have it ironed out and explained fully. Doing the work to provide that because I myself had questions and dug deeper, so it can help other people understand it more. Well, if no one
Yeah,
has,
and
yeah, go ahead.
uh, yeah, I just want to also agree that I think this is definitely the most effective way to do this kind of great work and to really directly influence the trajectory of humanity, even if it's in the small way of only your family. Like sometimes, it takes one family to change a whole village. I don't know if this is some words of wisdom that just came to my mind, but I think this is true. Like, only one family becomes the king family. Like here in Thailand, there's still a king and queen family, bloodline. So obviously, they are not any moral leaders. They're just, I guess, some sort of corrupt leaders. I don't know. I'm not gonna talk shit too much publicly about something like that, but you know what I mean. Yeah, I feel like in a natural way, for humans, it will be reasonable that the family that has the highest moral value, I guess. I don't know if that's the correct word to use, but you know what I mean. Like have the highest morality, they would be the automatically the leaders of a whole village and then by extension a whole town or city or country and all that. Um, so they are leading with their principles, with their actions, with their teachings and everything. And like another example is like here in town is the Buddha. Like the Buddha is worshipped here by many, and I think they worship him kind of in a idle way. But what he himself taught is like I'm just here as a teacher. I'm trying to aspire other teachers, other people to internalize and basically alchemize this information that I'm teaching, so you can pass it forward, right? Like take the torch and pass it forward. Light up the way, light up the darkness around you. Whether it's like internally, externally, obviously metaphorically in terms of like ignorance, like put an end to ignorance, burn it up, and from the ashes, find the wisdom, and yeah, really apply it to your life. Don't just talk about it just to talk about it, just because it's cool or just because it makes you look smart or whatever the fuck. Like really care about it, really care for truth, right? So yeah, I think you're bringing really, really, really great points, Chris. Really stuff to contemplate and integrate.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is lead by example, not lead by authority. So you can have influence, and people can view them as view anyone as a leader, but not in an authoritative aspect, but more as a influence and be an example and teach by example, and then as that example is demonstrated through your actions, then people can imitate and copy it for sure. Well, if anyone has any closing things they want to say, I guess we can end it there. I know Brandon's getting a bit tired there. I think.
Yeah, man.
We're out
Like
of. Yeah.
that's because I get up so early, and usually by the time I get toward the end of the day and it gets dark, I've got like so many monitors in front of me, like 6 monitors in front of me.
Holy
I really
shit!
need to, yeah, I need to tone down
I use
on the
one,
tech.
and then I only turn
Yeah,
my second one on to have the slide so I can do the whole presentation thing.
Yeah, I'm trying to downscale just because I just have so much. But yeah, gotta start getting tired. Like like we always say, it's about understanding morality and truth and aligning with it. Aligning our thoughts, our emotions, and our behaviors with that. And like Chris said earlier, without knowledge, and without the correct memory, then we can't be in a position to, learn from our mistakes and to, use discernment to weigh moral judgment when it comes to, behaviors. And that's the reoccurring theme in what we are talking about. And as Chris stated earlier, in order to combat will is going to require free will. That's necessary. So, like you said, evil is using will to plant the plant the seeds of the evil. So then, therefore, we have to use free will to rectify that evil and do what's correct and do what's moral and do what's right, even if that means combating that which is evil. If those two forces have to collide, then it is what it is. That's something that we can't run from. So yeah, that's what I'll close with.
Theo, if you want to say anything.
No, just appreciate you too. Yeah, I've been really um, grateful for your two's great work, and you have influenced me uh, to align more with truth, morality, and have the care for it. And so I'm inspired by you, and I hope to have my own content soon. More directly, I've been doing kind of my music thing, which I've been sprinkling those messages into. But I think I can also do more directly presentations. I've been thinking maybe I can do like a reading of that uh, um, the discourses of the Buddha. I think this is something kind of fresh for the community because I don't think anyone talks about Buddhism, but I think there is something really good to get from it. There's a lot of wisdom that is hidden in there. So I think if I can do a reading of it, if some people find it interesting, then that can maybe be some form of great work I can start with before I maybe create more original presentations, stuff like that.
Yeah. Or you could, if you know it, just extract like the stuff related to natural law or morality or whatever inner work, like the specific things that relate to, I guess, the goal of ending evil, whatever can help people along that path. Maybe it is the whole book. I don't know. I haven't I haven't read it, discourses, but I can shorten it. I don't know how long it is. If it's a really long book, then it'd take you like several episodes. But yeah, and then it's more tailored to like the specific goal that you have of putting it out, and instead of just reading something, it's putting part of yourself into it, and you like extracting that core message, and you could go deeper into, like, say there's a chapter, and well, in that first chapter talks about this and this, and then, well, this is important because of that, and it relates to this other concept that the Buddha doesn't talk about or something, and yeah, you can put your own spin on relating it to the other things that that aren't talked about, and so people can make more sense of it. Those are just ideas for you, rather than just
Yeah, good
reading a
points.
text. Yeah.
Yeah, of
Or while
course.
you're reading, you
Yeah.
could stop and say, put in your own commentary to relate it to other things, to give it more context or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah, I had something I wanted to say, but I forget. It's all good. Be repeaters, people. Repeat. We got to repeat. That's how the voice of truth amplifies. Don't get focused on creating new
Yep.
stuff all the time. Just find out what that quality truth is that's going to work to end evil and end our enslavement, and try to do that and repeat what other people say, and then you'll find your own voice and your own path and do your own thing eventually. But amplifying the voice of truth is in a repeating capacity is a good place to start. So I'll thank you guys for joining me. I was thinking I would be done after my 40-minute or so presentation, but good to see there's always people joining in after to have a discussion and can expound on things or bring in new topics to talk about and new perspectives. So have a good rest of your day, Theo. You're not evening yet. You still got a lot of daylight left. And
good night to you too. Yeah.
Good night to you, to Brandon. Thanks for coming on by, and catch you guys next week maybe.
Yeah. Peace out.
Right.
Thanks for
Awesome.
having me, as always. Thanks for joining us, Theo.